Sarah Alagroobi. I'm an Emirati artist from Sharjah, based in Abu Dhabi. My practice is multidisciplinary. It involves painting, performance, poetry, prose, and everything else in between, really. So this is the studio space that I work in. I took all the beds out, and it was a bedroom before, and I occupied each corner of the room that serves as a different function. So in this corner over here, I serve it as a sort of exhibition space where I'm able to hang the work, have some distance from it, and able to decide whether the work is complete or not. So it gives me a moment of rest. I also occupy the floors. I use these easels, these large easels, as a partition, so I'm able to separate the space as well when I'm walking through. And so each space in this room serves a function, and that function is predominantly dictated by either the materiality or the implement/tool that I'm using. It's been a really interesting ride. I've just kind of tried to rediscover my practice because I've left the sort of conceptual realm of work and really focused on materiality because that's where my interest lies. I've been really experimenting with different textures, seeing how they play with light and how they sit next to neighboring materials. So sometimes I would mix with resin, I would have some acrylic with some fabrics and see where they kind of went. And with my practice, I tend to have a very conceptualized idea of where things are going. It's a very methodical, systematic process to the way that I work. And recently, because of these uncertain times, it's kind of been all over the place. I've allowed the process of making to sort of run through me as a way to guide itself rather than me sort of guiding it. I work predominantly in the morning. I enjoy natural light. I enjoy working with materials that play with natural light. So having the ability to spend loads of time with materials such as acrylic paint, I really get a great sense of learning how they behave, and in a way it's personifying, how to personify concept or how to personify ambiguity in a way that the paint kind of serves its purpose beyond just the materials. So it's been really playful with colors like cadmium red or vermilion. They are so difficult and so stubborn, and often at times really unforgiving when I use them in paintings, but they've been really fun to see how they behave with neighboring materials.
The act of carving is actually a very intuitive and laborious process which involves layers and layers of paint built up anywhere between a few weeks to a few months to prepare. The layers become the canvas, so in essence the object of the work becomes the subject of the work. This is because with every removal of a layer I uncover the object's history, and so I revisit the subjectivity every time I carve. And within the subtraction of selective revealing and concealing of memory or an imagined space, I'm not quite sure. So the compositional consideration is based on that rediscovery, carving out a place for personal contemplation.
We are all going through, the whole world is going through this form of existentialism. And so this need to create work is just an urgency or response to that need to discover and that need to keep questioning why I do what I do, why do I enjoy it, where does it come from? I think defining my art practice is something I still have yet to define. And I think the second that I define it, it will no longer be interesting to me. And I will no longer find the need or have the curiosity to further explore it. So in a way, this is a large extension of a thesis statement to where I'm continuously asking the question, why am I making work like this? What is the point? What is the reason? And I still haven't figured it out, but I think the second I do, I'll no longer make the work. So as long as I'm still thinking about it, it means that I'm doing something right. With a work like this, for example, I need a lot of distance. So I'm constantly doing a 360. And when I'm working with tufting, which is this technique of applying threads onto a surface in a way that creates rugs, I have to constantly be thinking in reverse. So I'm working in a way from two faces, the front face and the back face. And when I walk around it, I'm able to see what's happening from the back and treat it almost like a canvas in itself, but then I know that the front will be the one that's visible to the viewer. Before these uncertain times, I was working in all different shapes and sizes, but I found that the physicality of the space that was sort of around me was very much reinforced in the work. It was very small and very intimate. They were sort of these boxed viewfinders or passageways into a different dimension. I've had this need or this urgency to relive my lost memories or my lost dreams that I craved during these times, and it's just been a process of creating these really fantastical dystopian places or even utopian to a degree. And so in a way they make no sense and then they make all the sense in the world. I sort of see this space as home, as cliche as that sounds. I can't really think of a time in my life where art wasn't a part of my practice or my existence, if I could even say that. So when I come into this space, I feel I'm able to truly be myself. Climate control was something that played a huge role in my practice. For the longest time, the AC wasn't working, so I was forced to create works in really hot temperatures. And it affected the work in the way that the process of mark making and the act of carving through surfaces became very violent and very frustrating. And it was just interesting to show how climate played just a way in which the mood would change for the work. The work that I've been creating now have been very much a point of departure from the way that I worked before, in the sense that I no longer rely on this mechanical hand to reinforce mark making. Now it's become very much the human hand and how human behavior plays a role in sentience or the sentience of the work. And so in a way, the personification of the work kind of goes beyond just mark making, but rather another language and another way of communicating and another way of speaking. I also tend to work on multiple paintings or projects at the same time. My practice is not just predominantly in painting or sculpture, but it takes another life of its own in other realms like poetry and writing. So poetry and prose plays a role, but they're very much divorced from my overall practice. I kind of see them as compartmentalized parts of my practice where I'm able to dip in and out between the two. In the beginning of this time, I've had to work with reusable materials. So I found that I was constantly using surfaces and old canvases that I hadn't touched in years and then reusing them or repurposing them to become new paintings. And what I found really interesting within that process is allowing for the history that was embedded in the painting that existed before it to almost be part of the new work. I've really been enjoying the stillness and the moments where I don't really rely on knowing what the next step is going to be. It's been very, exciting and exhilarating to have the chance to actually allow for the material to be respected. The time it takes for things to dry, the integrity that I have towards the materials that I'm using is a different relationship that I didn't have before, I didn't have the time to have before. So it's been very refreshing.